Right, hello. So hopefully we are live. Sorry, about half a minute late there. I forgot, or I keep forgetting, that when I try and fire it up on YouTube, it takes significantly longer than it does on Twitch for some reason. Never mind. We seem to be working now. So evening everyone. And what should we talk about today? We've got obviously all the Before the Storm stuff. I've still got, I can't believe it, still got all the Sylvanas apologists coming up with a load of random nonsense there. Hi Gareth, hi Fraser as well, by the way. But, you know, there we go. Even though I have to be Horde now. It is Tuesday, yes. You know, it's... It sort of comes round a bit weird. Hi, Frenchie. It comes round a bit weirdly for me as well because, you know, at work, it's like really weird. So there's like this week, after this week, there's 3 more weeks, but there's like, let's say 4 weeks with this week. This week and next, well, this week is just students finishing off the stuff they're supposed to be doing. Next week is me trying to get rid of them because as they finish the work that they've got, they can disappear off. So that's when I can start to do more planning. And then the week after is when we have like loads of school kids come in to do sessions, so I have to make sure they're sorted out. Don't really like that, if I'm honest. And then the final week, I suppose, is just making sure everything's ready for after summer, and then go off for summer. And that's when I need to sort of make the best of it. The first clue was easy. You say that, but how do you know? That could be any number of links with that. You know, there's 4 things, and it's what links all 4 of them. So, you don't know yet. You've no idea. You might be able to work it out after 2. After 3, I would think most people will, and after 4, I think everyone should be able to. But, hi everyone. So, you're actually Hig, Pig, and Frozen as well. So, yes, so what is on our minds today, then? What are we actually going to be going through? Is it going to be like, what, you know, more nonsense speculation between Horde and Alliance? Is it going to be, you know, what is the nature of the Void? Again, that's come up as well. I've had to dig out several reference books, including the Warcraft Chronicles, which I will confess, the thing is, it's actually really difficult because every time I try and say to someone, you know, this is it, this is the, what did Metzen write? Who is somewhat blotting his copybook with me as of late, I have to say. I'd like not really say anything against him, but, you know. Right, this book, this chronicle, is meant to bring it all together and reinforce the overarching narrative that lies at Warcraft's heart. Writing this was an opportunity to unite the frayed story ends and smooth out the rough edges of this fictional history. So, you know, this is supposed to be the Bible of it. This is supposed to be, you know, hi Razor, stuck there. The Yield going crazy, again, I've not really got myself into that too much. I'm vaguely surprised, obviously we know it's happening, but I was vaguely surprised that Blizzard ever wanted to go back to alternate Draenor. You know, I thought we'd all agreed as a community that Warlords of Draenor never happened. You know, and although I say as an expansion that I was really, I was happy with the gaming experience, I hated the storyline. I thought it was absolutely ridiculous. And a lot of other people hated other bits of the expansion. So I just thought we'd all agreed to forget it, and just, it didn't happen. You know, it was a dream sequence that never actually happened. And then they go and bring it into sharp focus again. So, why? So anything else that comes of it, I'm just going to roll my eyes at. Like the Magar Orcs, why couldn't they be our Draenor, the Outland Magar Orcs? I really don't get it. Do not understand. Is Ret better if in BFA than Legion? 50 days before Legion. In terms of most of it, yeah, the utility is still just as disastrous. In fact, worse. The utility is worse. No, actually, no, that's a lie. The utility is just as bad. The defensives and movement are worse. But this is not the Ret one. I do a live Ret Q&A every now and then, and there is likely to be one soon, before the pre-expansion patch goes out. How long do I think it'll be before Blizzard start releasing the second version of the Chronicles series? They just can't. It's too much of a mess. But, you know, they've already sort of with Nathrazim. Do you think the possibility of Undead as Alliance race that might be thinking of doing something like Elder Scrolls, where PvE has no factions? No, all this stuff to do with factions now, nothing will change in World of Warcraft. Nothing will change with regards to that in World of Warcraft, ever. It's sad, but it will. You know, because like I keep saying, I've said years and years and years ago, ever since I first experienced someone doing it right or being shown someone doing it right, it was like, for PvP or for World PvP, you want 3 factions. For PvE, you want 0 factions. How you accommodate that is up to you, but that's what you need. And the only MMO that's done it superbly well is Elder Scrolls Online. That's the only one. Well, as far as I know, obviously I haven't played everyone. There might even be some big titles that do it well as well. If the Undead did become available for Alliance, how little would it help with the faction balance? Not at all. Not at all. The faction balance is, for Mythic raiding, that's it. It's done. It's a thing. But what was it now? Yes, there's something that we all know is going to be like, again, it's like, they don't have bloody page numbers on these things. Blizzard, what are you up to? So let's just say, I don't even know, 1, 2, 3, 4, the 6th page of content in the Warcraft Chronicles. Naru. The Naru are benevolent creatures of living holy energy. So they've already that one in Legion, and it sounds very much like, of course, very soon, we might as well rip that paragraph out of the book. You know, it's supposed to be in there, Void bad, Naru good. But of course, you know, ever since Argus, it's been a bit like, that's why I started talking about the Babylon 5 thing, you know, Hydra thing. Sorry, let's catch up with stuff. But yeah, Undead being Alliance race. I mean, basically, they've got to do 2 things before it can be. It's not going to be, you know, there's not going to be a rush, obviously, because we still haven't got Dark Iron Dwarfs and Magor Orcs. No, is it Magor? Yeah, they're the next 2. So they're coming out soon, obviously. But then we've got the Zandalari and Kulturans as well. I mean, we don't know when that's coming out. That might be 8.1. Might not be until 8.2. Don't know. So, you know, there's still, you know, whatever the allied races are after that is some time to come. But they've got to do... Hi, Roku, no problem. They've got to do 2 things. First of all, obviously from the novel, it made it really clear, if it wasn't already obvious, that a lot of the citizens of Stormwind are not really going to accept Undead wandering around. So that's got to be overcome. And also, Kalia has got to agree that actually she's probably going to join the Alliance now. Which shouldn't be too much of a hard sell, because it's like Anduin friend, Sylvanas not friend. So even though she's friendly with Horde priests, Sylvanas, the war chief of the Horde, is really not her friend. Do I think... Hang on. WoW will be ported to console like Diablo 3? No. It's a terrible game to play on a console. I know there are people... I know there's someone who watches this every now and then that plays it on a controller. It's a terrible experience, surely to God. Now, whether... You know, I am almost certain that when they come up with whatever is going to be the next in the Warcraft series of games, I am certain that it would either be for mobile or for console. Mobile is better because if they produce it for mobile... I don't play mobile... Sorry, for consoles. Sorry, for consoles. If they produce it for consoles, which I don't play any more than I play mobile games, then at least they could also produce a PC version of it. So I could play that at least. No matter how hard Blizzard tries, I won't be convinced that Sylvanas is any shade other than solid black. Well, they've pretty much stated it there at the end. You know, as I said in a comment, as soon as... Like, Anduin has now officially given up on her. Anduin is the most peace-loving person there's ever been. Jaina was very keen on peace, right? She was the one who really wanted the peace between the Horde and the Alliance. But Anduin has not just taken over that mantle. You know, he's much more so than her. So once he's given up on Sylvanas, not the Horde, but he's given up on Sylvanas, you know, that's basically it, isn't it? Does this mean... What do you mean? Does it mean I'm adding more characters? Are they adding more characters? Characters as in what? Do you mean like races? At some point they will. We don't know when. We don't know what. It's just speculation. I just happen to think that that bit in the storyline, that whole Kalia thing, makes zero sense unless the plan is Undead Alliance. It makes no sense otherwise. There's no point in it. You know, as if all this book was for was a prelude to the Alliance and the Horde kicking off again, that's not how they would have done it. So that also has to be setting that up as well. It's got to be. It's got to be. Hi, Morgul. What's my speculation for endgame for Sylvanas? I really don't. I still have faith that they will not do Garrosh 2.0. I also don't believe... Well, I know she's not going to be the last raid boss. That's silly. Of BFA. That would be a nonsense. Because, again, I keep emphasising, this expansion coming out is not a Horde versus Alliance expansion. It just has those elements to it to throw us off the scent. You know, it'll be Old Gods related, because it is an Old Gods expansion. But I don't think she'll be a raid boss at all. I think she's too important a character to deal with. I think it's much more likely that she would be replaced at some point. I'm not even saying this expansion. I think it's much more likely she'd be replaced as War Chief, but still continue to lead, well, probably half the Forsaken, because if half of them join the Alliance, she's going to have fewer Forsaken. But I can see her being deposed, but she's the most important character and popular character, really, in the game. She's the only character that has been prominent ever since Warcraft 3. All the way through, she's been a prominent character. She's been there. You know, I can't think of a time when she really was. I mean, Burning Crusade. I didn't really play Horde in Burning Crusade. I can't swear. She might not have done much in Burning Crusade, but in every other expansion, she's been quite important. She's had an important storyline. I'm expecting Blizzard storylines to make sense. No, I'm not expecting them to make sense. They almost never make sense. What I'm expecting is for them not to repeat it. That's all I'm expecting. That it's not a Garrosh 2.0. I don't buy that. I don't think they can permanently kill Sylvanas off either. I know she's got a few lives, so you can sort of kill her and not kill her. But I don't see her being permanently killed. She's too important a character to the game. She's untouchable. She's like Thrall. Can't touch her. She's one of the very few characters you cannot just kill off. Sylvanas needs to face the Lich King. Well, that's another interesting point, of course. You know, in terms of obviously the official line at the moment is almost nobody knows that the Lich King's even a thing. I actually don't know where we are with that after Legion, because after all, like the Death Knights know that the Lich King is a thing. And Darian Morgraine is no friend of even the new Lich King. So it would be surprising if the news hadn't got out, but the news doesn't seem to have got out. And of course, with... Spoiler. With the Lich King's daughter playing a prominent role. Because that's another thing. Like, someone said, when I did that video about Talia... Someone actually said, and I hadn't really considered it, oh, do you think she'll be a love interest for Anduin? Well, in here, again, Greymane keeps banging on for the first half of the book. He keeps banging on about Anduin finding a queen. And so I'm thinking, well, now it makes even more sense. It already made sense that I was thinking, yeah, because Anduin and Talia are going to meet in BFA, about the same age. Talia, you know, noble woman. It could absolutely make sense. But now that, you know, I've read that, I'm thinking, yeah, of course. Surely, surely. So there's going to be a Queen Talia, I'm sure of it. Sylvana, this third faction, stop it. There's no. It makes no sense on any level. It doesn't make sense for Blizzard to introduce a third faction on a gameplay level, and it doesn't make sense on a story level. It would have done 13 years ago, but they didn't do it then, and it makes no sense. All the reasons for having a third faction no longer exist. There's no reason anymore. And so the benefits are completely absent, and all you'll do is piss off a load of people. What they should do, and they won't even do this, is nullify factions for PvE, because that's the only thing for which there is both a storyline, not a storyline compulsion, but a storyline explanation, but a gameplay compulsion for. Hi, Brandon. Maybe Bolvar will go on full offensive. I still don't really know what to think about Bolvar as the Lich King. Because although he's definitely... Because I, you know, if there's been a novel where it's featured, I haven't read it. I don't read all the novels. This is the first novel I've read for a while. Taliesin have eventual theories. They're not necessarily theories, to be fair to them. They're just, like, they're videos. I'm not saying they're completely made, but there's a lot of entertainment value in it. That's why they're so popular. They do it really, really well. Like, for example, all this stuff they've done on allied races, they know that's nonsense. All the stuff they've done about a faction boss being the end of expansion raid boss, they know that's nonsense. Because, you know, if I even commented about it and they said, yeah, of course, blah. They're just doing it because, you know, speculation is fun. Everyone likes a bit of speculation. And you never know with Blizzard, because, you know, things like, the thing is, if you speculate, normally if you speculate in something like, actually maybe Star Wars is a bad example these days, but you used to be able to, or you speculate in something else, you can try and work on what's gone before and try and extrapolate. You can't really do that with World of Warcraft, because Blizzard have no respect for their own lore. They change it at the drop of a hat. These bloody books, which were only written recently, have already been contradicted. I don't know. Bolvar has been the Lich King longer than Arthas was. Has he? I'm not sure he has. Right? Because Arthas didn't become the Lich King at the start of World of Warcraft. He'd been the Lich King for about 5... That reminds me, there's a mistake in here. There's a mistake in here. It describes, right, one of the Forsaken, before I forget, I should have put it in that bloody video and I forgot. One of the Forsaken that gets to meet his daughter at this event, and the daughter is described as being about 15 years old. Now, at that point, I'm thinking, oh, maybe he became undead during World of Warcraft's time. But no, he was described as being killed during Arthas's, like, attack on Lordaeron. Now, that happened... I think it was 10 years. No. Arthas was Lich King for at least 5 years before World of Warcraft. Before the World of Warcraft started. He was Lich King for at least 5 years at that point. And then, of course, there was another, like, 4 years before Lich King expansion came out. And then there was another, like, 2 years before, or at least 1 year before you killed him, depending on how you work it out. So he was Lich King for at least 10 years. Really. So it's maybe about the same. But the point is, so at this point this book's written, World of Warcraft's been out about 13 years. It's about 20 years. It's at least 20 years since Arthas attacks Lordaeron. About 20 years. And this girl wasn't supposed to have just been born at the time. She was supposed to be old enough to remember her father, so at least like 4 years old. So her age would have to be at least 24, not 15. So that was shocking. So yeah, I completely forgot to talk about that in the review thing. wasn't that big a deal. Most of the rest of the book was quite good. It's actually quite an interesting counterpoint because as well as reading this, recently I've also been reading the Warhammer End Times novels. The problem with Warhammer novels is they're not usually written by terribly good authors. I had the same problem with the Slayer series years and years ago. He got better, actually. I think it was called William King, the fella. He got better as the series went on. But the problem is they keep using the same devices. Like, he kept describing people as being knocked down like a pole-axed something or other. I can't remember what it was. But all the bloody time. And it jars on you. Use a different bloody metaphor, will you? And there was a thing in the Warhammer one where this author, I was reading it a few days ago, he was describing this greater demons being like scythes. And I thought, well, that's not a very good metaphor unless it's actually slicing things, and it wasn't. But then he described another monster's things as being like scythes, and I thought, well, at least come up with a different metaphor for that, will you? Warcraft 3, The Frozen Throne was out July 2003. No, it doesn't matter about those years. You watch the original Warcraft trailer, World of Warcraft trailer. Okay? It was way more than 6. No, what are you talking about? Absolute nonsense. You've got to look, right? It's not based on that. You watch the original World of Warcraft trailer. Can I find it? Hold on. Damn it. No, never mind. It's 10 years, promise you. What am I listening to? Oh, sorry. What? Huh? Have I missed something? No, the headset's just there in case a sound appears. I need to cut it out. Sometimes things happen. I've got websites open. So I'm not listening to anything. But if some sound appeared from some program, I'd have to be aware of it and shut it off. Otherwise, I have to wait for you lot to tell me, and then there's like delay on that, and then there's a delay on me doing it, and all the rest of it. Arthas becomes the Lich King, specifically at the end of the Frozen Throne, yes. But there's a gap between the Frozen Throne and World of Warcraft that is greater than the actual gap in our time, which is described in the World of Warcraft trailer. But anyway, that's a minor point. You've loved the story of Yrel. Do you think she'll get more story in future expansions? No, they'll just abuse her. Like they do with every character. They just use them. When they need someone to do something, they'll do it. And it could be that she'll act completely out of character because it'll just serve a need at the time. That's what they'll do. Took a few days of in-game time. I'm not sure how much that was supposed to last. 4 years have passed since the mortal races, yes. Is it 4? Either way, it leaves about 10 years that it was about Lich King. It depends when you consider the fall of the Lich King to have taken place, I suppose. But I would say, at the very least, mid-Wrath ought to be where you consider it. BFA should be the final WoW expat, then Warcraft 4 should release. Well, Warcraft 4 can't release after BFA unless they're already working on it. Whatever it is, doesn't matter whether it's an MMO or not. Whatever it is going to take a few years to develop, isn't it? They're not going to bring out any old shit. You know, this isn't like, you know, Hearthstone, which although it's popular, is not a complex game to put together. This is like obviously the person who put it together, you know, made it up, did it in their spare time. And although you can do it initially, and it's very difficult to do it completely in secret because, of course, they have to advertise for people to work on a secret project, don't they? Which I know they do all the time. But at some point, they have to get the information out there because at some point they need more people to work on it. They have both been a Lich King for a good long while, yes. Yeah. Or they both were. Obviously, Arthas hasn't now. Well, apart from the bit of Arthas that's potentially still stuck in his head. Because that's the other thing with Bolvar. I don't know. And again, it might have been explained and I just missed it. I don't know. I'm not Nobble. I don't know to what extent Bolvar's actions are Bolvar's actions and to what extent it's the influence. Because obviously, I don't really believe that Bolvar would have instructed our Death Knights to raise the dead. Especially against their wishes. But he's done that. So that's a little bit, crossing a line. So whether he's still doing it in what he considers for the greater good, or whether there's any malevolence behind it, I don't know. But I think it would be interesting, an interesting storyline for Talia to find out that her father, first of all, what happened to her father, because she doesn't really know. Secondly, if it links in with this, because in here, Kalia describes herself as having a child with like a Stormwind guard. It's not impossible that that's Bolvar. Obviously, Bolvar was much grander than a Stormwind guard. But Talia thinks her father was a Stormwind guard. So, it's possible that Kalia is Talia's mother. I don't know. That might be stretching a point. I don't really know. But the possibility exists. I thought Blizz always worked on 2 expansions at a time. I don't know. I don't think they do now. They said that for Legion and WoD, and they said that's what they're going to do. But I don't get the impression that's what's happening now. I think the reason they did it for WoD and Legion was so that they could bring out WoD when the film came out. They were trying... This is the irony of the whole thing. They were trying to hit that, but they didn't know when the film would come out, so they did both in parallel. And then when the film release was announced, they went, right, WoD, that'll hit it. And then the film was released a year late, at which point Blizzard went, shit, it's going to launch during basically Legion. I mean, it was still technically WoD, but it was at the arse end of WoD when they'd run out of stuff to do. Kalia's child and father but were killed, though it wasn't stated in the book. She just imagines they were. We don't know that. It was just, I think, obviously I'd have to read it again to be absolutely certain, but I think it was assumed without actually being known. But I can't swear to that. Because it wasn't one of the made. I think at that point in the book I was more interested in whether that gnome was going to get killed. Imagine if we had WoD after Legion. Well, no, you see, if we'd have had WoD after Legion, Legion would have been the expansion with the bog-all gameplay, and WoD would have been the ones with all the features that we've got in Legion. It's only the story that's unique to those expansions. The actual gameplay elements of it. Like, if Legion had been out first, we'd have been collecting Apexis crystals for Legion. Or they might have called them something different, but all that bollocks would have been in for Legion. We'd have also had the shipyard, because we were still on an island. Could easily have had a shipyard. Not that Draenor's an island, it's a bloody planet, but you know what I mean. Still hoping for you all to take Velen's place, along with Anduin and Kalia as the new crop of alliance leaders. I don't think she's gonna take Velen's place, because I know it's not canon, but there is that story about Anduin when he's an older man, significantly older man, leading that army of the light, and Velen's there with him. So I think Velen's here for the long haul. I know it's not canon, that story, and even if it was, it doesn't really matter, does it? In fact, it seems pointless even talking about canon when you talk about Warcraft stories, because effectively, nothing. Canon's supposed to mean set in stone. This is the way it is, but What if Blizzard with the top 100 mythic kills per faction make it non-cross realm mythic raidable? Hold on. If raid isn't current anymore. Well, if the raid's not current anymore, they do make it cross-realm. Like, you can do mythic Tomb of Sargeras. Well, you can do mythic anything now. But, when Antorus came out, you could do mythic cross-realm Tomb of Sargeras. So that can be done anyway. It's just about doing it while it's still current. Classes, what you mean, played better in WoD? Garrisons were not... you know, they put too much to, obviously they put everything in there that you could possibly need. That's the problem. What was there anything you'd needed that wasn't in there? Can't really think of anything. The other problem, I suppose, with the garrison, not only was everything that you could possibly want in there, but there was nothing that you could possibly want in the bloody so-called city, that dirt pile in Ashran. Because we were supposed to be getting cities, and they then scrapped that and then tried saying that they never said we were at all. Which was a fairly foolish thing to say, because everything they say is recorded. But yeah, I literally was the case. If they'd have done Legion first, we'd have thought that that was a load of garbage and that Warlords of Draenor... Because storyline-wise, they could easily have come either way round. They were totally separate storylines. We could have easily polished off the Burning Legion, then suddenly had a fresh threat to Azeroth with the gate opening up again. You wish raids were relevant through all expansion, not just the newest like now. Well, you have two systems that you can adopt. There's the system that used to exist in World of Warcraft, which was a much more traditional MMO structure, in that you get to level cap, then you do dungeons because you need to gear up a bit, then you do the first raid because you're not geared up enough to do the later raids, and then you do you've done that raid, you've geared up a bit, you go to the next raid. It's hierarchical like that. The problem with that is someone joins or rolls a new character halfway through the expansion, but more particularly if they just start the game and level up halfway through the expansion, they're then struggling to find groups to do... I mean, well, actually no, because there's still people doing Molten Core, even in guilds later on. But nonetheless, it means you can't do the late, and you know you never will, because you'll start on progression there. Like Preach, for example. I remember Preach... what he used to do a lot of in the early days, story times in terms of his raiding experience. So I remember in one particular one he was talking about the fact in vanilla, he played the game and then stopped playing the game. Then he came back significantly later and he progressed through Molten Core, and they just finished Molten Core, and he described how, and it must have been quite late on, because he described how someone in his guild left when they were just starting Blackwing Lair to join a Nax guild. Now, Nax didn't come out till like the summer, just, you know, it's like half a year before the next expansion. So he was only just doing Blackwing Lair at that point, because that's how you had to do it. So he had no chance, zero chance, at that point, you know, of completing or you're progressing through all of the raids then. So people much more these days, and I don't think it's WoW that's done this, I think they've just followed the pattern. People want to do the catch-up and do the latest one. Anyway, where was I? I'm missing so many stuff. Is there going to be new quest lines and new ways to make gold? Well, I don't know how much gold we're going to get from missions, but that remains a thing. Mission rewards do include gold. We're getting borrowless now. What? There's no we anymore, unfortunately. I've had to go hoard. Sorry. I've got to deal with all those steps. That bloody pyramid. Is a tier where tons of guild get cutting edge a bad thing? No, not at all. You know, the more the merrier that actually do mythic raiding. That side of it's fine. You prefer TBC's... TBC's system was a lot different. The problem with TBC is that you had attunements. Now, you had attunements in vanilla as well, but they were easy. You could basically solo them or do them in pug groups because they were dungeon-based. The attunements in TBC were raid-based. The problem with that is... So, my guild was no different to this. I actually, you know, was annoyed by it, but nonetheless. So, we killed Kel'Thas, and we needed an item off him to be able to get access to Mount Hyjal. And you had to kill the first boss in Mount Hyjal to get yourself attuned for Black Temple. So to get attuned for the tier 6 raids, you had to have killed Lady Vash at the end of Serpent Shrine Cavern and Kel'Thas Sunstrider at the end of like the Eye or Tempest Keep, whatever you want to call it. So you had to do the tier 5 raids. Now the problem was that in our guild, and I think there was I know there was a lot of guilds that did the same thing. You killed Kel'Thas. The next week you killed him again, because obviously not everyone in the raid had killed him. So you swapped some people out, got some more people in. Maybe you did it a third week as well, and then that was it. You were straight into... Because you had 2 more raids to do now. Hyjal and Black Temple. So you decided to sod farming the tier 5 stuff. So that means anyone trying to join your guild at that point, if they didn't have those attunements, forget it. So there was 0 chance of you recruiting anyone that was behind you in progress, because they wouldn't have those achievements. So that was pretty poor. I am, of course, Alliance at Hearts, yes. But unfortunately, I'm stuck as Horde. And there's no point in trying to pretend that anything will change. Because I don't, you know, I'll be Horde now. That's all there is to it. Just have to face facts. So there's always a downside when you consider like how things used to be or how they could be. There's always a good side to it and a bad side to it, and you always have to sort of work out, well, what's on balance, what's likely to be the, you know, what most people are going to prefer. One good thing about playing Hordes on the right side of the ganking parties, there won't be any ganking parties. There will be 0 ganking parties because I will not have war mode on. No interest in war mode. I will have war mode on for the first day, possibly. I haven't even decided on that. Maybe I will. And that's it. Done. Finished. Tons of guild got cutting edge in Emerald Nightmare. Less than half got in Nighthold. Yeah, that's because Nighthold was a raid. Emerald Nightmare. The only tough bosses in Emerald Nightmare were Il'gynoth and Cenarius. You know. And Cenarius, after a while, you could muscle your way through it. So only Il'gynoth really remained a boss that needed that sort of mythic coordination. There was a bit of coordination required on Xavius, but let's be honest, it wasn't much. There were some people who like 2 or 3 shot Mythic Xavius when they got there. I think we killed it in like 9 pulls, and we were embarrassed to have taken that long over it. You have vivid memories trying to do Carrot on an Outlaw in TBC, only to find out no one had the key. Well, everyone should have done that quest line to have got the key, shouldn't they? What do I think about... Or do you mean... Or physically got the key because it was a physical thing. Do you mean left in the bank? What do you think about them opening Mythic Cross Realm once both Alliance and Horde are completed? Guilds won't matter less. It will help heroic guilds get into Mythic. Because like I say, there's a lot of heroic guilds that might quite like to do Mythic, but don't have the numbers. But if they could twin with another guild, then they could each do their own heroic progress and then team up for the Mythic stuff. Well, I think there's a significant difference between Taliesin Evertil and Belula. Taliesin and Evertil don't bullshit their viewers, you know. Whereas Belula, some stuff he does is really good. I've said this before. He used to be one of my favourite WoW YouTubers because where he does stuff that's within his area of expertise, it's really good. Which is because coming from a technical background. But when he tries to pretend to do guides that he knows nothing about, at that point, he shouldn't really be doing that. Particularly as I know that not, you know, because there's 2 types of people that do that. There's the type of person that just makes up a load of shit and puts it out there. And there's a type of person who just basically steals it off someone else. And he's the type who steals it off someone else, which is worse than just putting out a load of shit. But anyway, never mind that. There's no way a full pug it's going to be anything in Mythic. Raiding for cross-realm stuff is for guilds to fill 1 or 2 spots. No. Guilds, you know, in the past do come together and do team up to do these things. I thought people liked Emerald Nightmare overall. I think the main thing that people liked about Emerald Nightmare is because they got cutting edge when they weren't going to be getting that from the following ones. Because like you looked at Nighthold, I even did a video because it was quite stark. In Nighthold, you know, when we were well into Nighthold, it'd been out for 2 or 3 months. There were a load of guilds just stuck at 3 out of was it 10? But stuck on 3 bosses anyway. Because the first 3 bosses were relatively straightforward. After that, there was a massive jump up in difficulty. Even though you had a choice of which boss you wanted to do next, all of them were a massive step up. So you had this situation where, and it must have been disheartening, I agree with you, that you've got Cutting Edge, Emerald Nightmare, and you think, right, we're up here, we've made it. The sunlit uplands, and you think you're going to do Nighthold. And you get the first 3 bosses down in like pretty good time. And then you just stuck. You've got that wall. And it doesn't matter which boss you did. Maybe you change it after a few weeks and go and do a different one. Makes no difference. You're just stuck. Balula's making his own game. You see, that's... Yeah, but the thing is, he's got a lot of very good technical skills. As a computing engineer, anything he does along those lines is going to be top-notch. Because that's his thing. And that's what he should really do. He made a channel doing that. It's not like his channel was like where mine is and then he did all the shit stuff and it became popular. He became popular without doing the shit stuff. That's what annoys me about him. And he should have just carried on doing that. I don't think he's got any more popular by putting out the shit. He's just lost respect, I think. Any thoughts on what Blizzard announced about Classic? Yes, I have. So it's fairly obvious because we now know what they intend, and that is that they're going to bring out Classic WoW, and that's it. They're going to leave it. So because I was wondering, are they going to bring it out and then no raids to begin with, and then bring a raid out and a raid out? But then you think, well, what happens when they've all been brought out after about 6 months, 12 months? But what it sounds like now, bringing it out as patch 1.12, that's them saying, we're bringing it out, there's your Classic server, have fun, knock yourself out. And that's it. That's all there is to it. The only other thought I had was when they were talking about optimizing it so we don't have horrendous amounts of lag, you think, okay, well, that's an obvious thing to do, sure. But that's hardly a Classic experience, isn't it? Because that means no more Ironforge lag pit or anything like that. Or walking into a rock for 3 minutes. Because as far as you're concerned, you just lagged out. I remember, I still have vivid memories of weird things in vanilla. One of which was in Silithus, me farming elemental earth. So I was attacking an earth elemental. Fortunately, I was a paladin, it really didn't matter. And I attacked it and then just lagged out. And then when the lag had finished, it was dead. I just looted it and carried on to the next one. Because all we could do was auto attack anyway. It was fine. No bugs in Classic. I mean, getting rid of bugs is fine. I don't think anyone's going to complain about that. You know, I think that's okay. Obviously, no one's realistically going to complain about optimizing it either. That's fine. And we'll still the only thing that we'll have that won't be really Classic stuff, I suppose. Like I said before, people will design different add-ons to what we had at the time. And obviously there'll be sites, lots of fan sites and stuff, which, you know, were a bit sparse then. It was very difficult. You know, Thoughtbot was where you went if you wanted to find something out. And it wasn't all that great. It was for some things. And we'll have Battle.net. Why work that hard to spoon feed and draw out limited content? Well, exactly, yeah. So, yeah, they've decided obviously not to do that. Hold on, what are you saying? You think they will time gate the raid releases? I know, I think the opposite of that. In fact, they've said the opposite of that, haven't they? They're not going to. It's going to be all out, that's it. There's your server, go and do it. See you later. See you a lot later, because we're not doing anything else. You have fond memories of the Ironforge lag. Well, so do I. Because you try and be clever and jump over it. But if you're lagged halfway through, you're just in it. That's it. Gone. Oh, well, yeah. I mean, they're doing it at 1.1. They're not going to change the balance of it. They're not going to balance it any different to what it was. Otherwise, you know, it's going to be what it is. So, yes, there'll be some... Yeah, I'm sure there'll be some people who are playing specs now that try and play... I mean, you try and play an arcane mage in vanilla at any point of vanilla. Good luck with that. And of course, but it's not for them anyway. For the people who play World of Warcraft now, it's not for them. It's for all the people who don't play World of Warcraft. The people who play World of Warcraft, Blizzard are already getting money off them. It makes no financial sense to bring it out for them. It only makes financial sense to bring it out for the people who might pay something for Classic. I still think the majority are a bit tight. But, you know, there's plenty that would be prepared to pay for it. That's true. But they don't play World of Warcraft as it is now. So, you know, charge them a bit of money, not too much, and there you go. Done. I'm not sure they want to get the servers out ASAP. I think there will have to be some concrete announcement for BlizzCon. You know, because it's like really weird. In fact, it was quite ironic. I think I was talking in the stream last week about the fact that, you know, Blizzard announced it at BlizzCon to great fanfare. And then there's been nothing since. Nothing. And then while I was doing the stream, they put that water cooler thing out. There was another site as well as Thoughtbot. It was Alakazam or something, wasn't it? Thinking of changing your race and your paladin from Tauren. What do you mean thinking of? You should. I don't know what you were thinking of making Tauren in the first place. Do I think trolls will be paladins? Yes, but not immediately. Well, we're not even going to get Zandalari trolls immediately. But there's more storyline to be done. Zandalari troll paladins, I am certain, will be a thing. But I don't know when. And it may not be until late on in BFA. I think it'll be during BFA. But it might not be till later on. Because they've got to do the old storyline. I don't go to BlizzCon, no, unfortunately. I do get the virtual pass, though. So the last couple of years, I've sort of streamed while it's been on and talked about it live while it's been on. Well, while the panels have been on anyway, the Friday panel. Going to be funny to see non-warrior tanks make it. There won't be any non... Like a bear can just about get away with it. Paladins can if you give us a lot of time. We can consecrate and stuff like that. You know, give us a while. We can hold aggro on something. But never mind waiting for 3 or 4 Sunders. You'll be waiting a damn sight longer than that. Well, it can't have been Thoughtbot and Alakazam that the predecessor to Wowhead unless they merged, because they were both out at the same time. Do I think Blizzard will actually do something about faction imbalance? No. They said they were going to. They said they had a plan. If their plan rests entirely on their this top 100 thing, I don't think much of it. I really don't think much of it. People point to private servers evidence of high demand for Classic. Aren't those servers free to play? They are, and those private servers used to exist during vanilla as well. But that being said, there are a lot of people that would pay for it. I am absolutely convinced if Blizzard just like charged, did it like Diablo, not World of Warcraft, like Diablo, no subscription, one-off payment, and it's there, it's yours, they would get lots of takers. I'm absolutely convinced of that. But, like I've also said, there are also lots of people that do it because it's free. Would I play a troll palette? No, I don't like troll armor stuff. Like, whenever we've had like the troll raids and dungeons, I've never liked the look of the gear from it. I just don't like that look. And I know, obviously, I can transmog it to whatever. But that's another problem. Trolls can't even... Like, they can't wear hats properly and they can't wear shoes. So, you know, there's no way of looking stylish, even for an upright troll. So, although, you know... I'm not saying it won't be tempting, because the racials could actually be quite good for a paladin. I don't think so. I mean, I'd rather do that than Tauren. I'd rather be a Zandalari paladin than Troll. I will, however, want to make a Zandalari troll. Actually, I don't know. I was thinking Zandalari troll druid. Now that I'm Horde anyway, might as well, when in Rome. The problem is that one of its forms is a raptor. I don't like raptors. Because I remember when I first went Horde, and I don't mean for like proper raiding, like when I came back to play casual at the end of Wrath of the Lich King, and I joined a very casual friends guild, very casual guild, and I played Horde, and I did the quest line where you get the Raptor mount from doing all that shit in Silithus, and I don't like the motion of it. I'm not going to say it gives me motion sickness as such, but it's very close to it. So obviously the same thing on a, you know, so maybe I won't, but I like the idea of it. Is Blizz just expansioned out? There's always new expansions you can think of. It's just, but you know, there just has to come a point where the game just gets too tired. The problem is it's still stupendously successful. It's a massive money spinner. So it's basically like, what do you call it? Golden handcuffs. You know, when you're stuck in a job because the pay's too good and you'll never get paid anything like it elsewhere, but you hate the job. I think Blizzard might even, it wouldn't surprise me if they feel that way about World of Warcraft. Maybe there's people there champing at the bits to do a new, more modern, better Warcraft game. But they're tied because of the massive amount of money they get from World of Warcraft. Maybe they're just praying for it to decline. They're hoping it does. That might explain some of the boneheaded decisions they make every now and then. Maybe they're trying to kill it off. Stop playing the bloody game. Look, we've put enough shit mechanics in. Stop it. They're still playing it. Oh, crap. What can we do now? I know. Put everything on the global cooldown. Force personal loot. That'll sort them out. But no, they're still playing it. What have we got to do to stop them playing the bloody game? Forsaken Paladin. I have no objection to a Forsaken Paladin. Hold on. Someone's got a message held for review. What have you done? I don't think I see a problem with that comment. So there we go. Right, okay. Forced gnome race. No, that'd be a step too far. Even Blizzard wouldn't go that far. Even Blizzard. Do I have to play it again? Seriously. Right. Oh, where's it gone? That should actually be down there.
There are no current plans for gnome paladins, but maybe.
His name's Mr. Gnome Paladin. You ruined his screen name.
I know. We want to, like, we try to be as flexible as possible when it comes to, you know, the race class combinations. Part of it is like the nature of paladins. It's this like orderly dedication to the light, this combination of things that feels somewhat at odds with gnomish nature. So
Ian has a costume himself, and I know that's only ruling out gnome paladins, but nonetheless he considers them lacking discipline. A lot of folk forget about all the millions in WoW just running around doing their own thing, collecting. Yes, well, that's exactly it. That's exactly it. And they don't care about any of the things that Blizzard put in, as long as there's enough stuff for them to do, which I think there is. The thing is, I don't think Classic WoW would do much in the case of a content drought, because I think it's for two different audiences. I think that most of the people, not all, but I think that most of the people that play World of Warcraft in its live state would not be wanting to play a lot of vanilla WoW. I wouldn't. I would play it. I would get it. And, you know, just for nostalgia's sake. But I wouldn't consider it a better game than what we've got now. You know, there's some things about it that I liked. I think there were some things that they changed, and maybe we lost some beneficial things from it. As for Blizz being sick of WoW, which I was only joking about, by the way. Well, I may have been only joking about it. Hope it does. Well, they're just like corn from Warhammer. They do not care from whence the blood or money flows. No, I think Blizzard, obviously they're a company, and I don't begrudge them obviously making loads of money. If they weren't focused on money, we wouldn't have all this massively expensive server transfer crap. That being said, as game companies go, they do care about their games rather more than some. They're still fairly, you know, independent. They're still basically run by the people that formed those games as well. So I think there is much more care about the games that come out. You're waiting for Naga as a playable race. You're not going to be able to transmog anything on them apart from maybe shoulders. That's it. Shoulders and weapons, that's all they'll be able to wear. Naga would be terrible. Does the lore in BFA look as good as it was in Legion? I think it's quite good. Yeah, I've quite enjoyed the questing in BFA so far. Legion was rife with European folklore. Oh, well, that's not going to go away, sorry. There's witch trials. They're not terribly original, I'm sorry. You know, the people who write the storylines for World of Warcraft are not hugely original. So, you know, they're always going to be based on something. Like the whole premise, again, in Warcraft Chronicles, the whole premise of like the cosmology of Warcraft is just taken directly from Greece's mythology. They've just worked the way forward from there. Majority of players see Vanilla Rizzo is all nostalgia. Yeah, but there's a lot of people who actually do genuinely like playing Classic WoW or Vanilla WoW, whatever you call it. Could be worse. You know, EA, I think you mean, yeah. Oh yeah, that's the death knell for anything, isn't it? If EA buy it, Jesus Christ. Isn't the only? I think FIFA is the only game franchise they've kept going there, and like people tell me it's a load of shit now. So I don't know. People will. Well, this is the thing. Like obviously, like as I say, the people who are playing the game now are not really going to get on with Classic. It's not for them. For a start, if your character is a Death Knight, a Monk, a Demon Hunter, then that's it. Forget it. If you want to make a Worgen or a Goblin or a Pandaren or whatever the hell, no. If you want to play Paladin, but your guild's going to be Horde, or you're going to be playing with friends who are Horde, no. You know, if you don't fancy running around for 40 levels, and even then you only get a horse if you can afford it, or you had the good sense to roll a Paladin or a Warlock, no. You know. Even then, if you were a hunter, okay, you can play a hunter. Make sure you've got a bag where you can store a load of arrows. Oh, by the way, you can't shoot at something that's right in front of your face. You know, all these sort of things. Oh, by the way, if you don't feed your pet, it'll get pissed off with you and bugger off. You know. What's the blue drink? It's not. It's a purple drink in a blue glass. It's Vimto. I am getting back into Warhammer, yes. How do I feel about it? I've just been reading, interestingly, I didn't bring out any videos last week. I've been behind with my painting. I'm not worried about keeping up with it, because as soon as I finish work, I can just paint all day, every day. But I have been reading the rules. I've advanced ordered Age of Sigmar 2. I only intended in getting the basics, but then I saw the big, shiny box with lots of stuff in it, and I thought, ooh, shiny. So I've advance ordered the big expensive box. I've been planning out my Skaven army. I've already started like making some of them. So I am certain. So Age of Sigmar is basically what I'm going to be playing. But I'm building up to it. Anyway. But yes, I've got a video on that coming out on Thursday where I'm up to with it. I've already brought a couple out. Let's have a look. Don't remind you of the dark times. You lost so many level 60 pets. I did as well. See, I had a bit of a hunter. I didn't get it up to level cap during vanilla. But yeah, it constantly fucked off. You know, in the end, the best way I could find to do it, like you could either have a bear, well, you could have several pets, but bears and cats were the easiest because a bear will eat anything. You know, you could just feed it cheese. It'd be fine with that. I totally loved it. And you always found cheese. That was easy. You get that off a vendor. And cats were fine with fish, and you could fish that up yourself. So those were the pets that seemed to be the least picky as far as I could tell. I hated flappy pets. Couldn't be doing with flappy pets in Raid, because I wasn't a hunter in Raid. But I had, you know, so whenever I was in melee, which, you know, even though I wasn't DPS, you would still be in melee to do various things. Flappy pets in your face. Couldn't be dealing with it. I should check out the Black Library. I've seen lots of apps on the phone. I don't want audiobooks. I've got, as I say, I've got the End Times. I've been reading through that. I've read Nagash. I'm halfway through the Altdorf one now. But like I say, you really appreciate good authors because they're badly written. The stories are interesting enough. They're fine. That's fine. But they're badly written. Oh, there's another one I've got. There we go. That's 2 comments that have actually been fine. Is it because you've said kill you? It's thinking you're going to say kill yourself, which is naughty, I guess. Maybe. But anyway. There's only so much reading I can do on Warhammer stuff for now. For now, I'm reading rules. I want to read rules. Vanilla was great at the time. Yes, it was. It was absolutely fantastic at the time. Because here's the thing. World of Warcraft, sorry, is very much like Warhammer for me. I did a video on the parallels between them. Basically, Warhammer Fantasy Battle, I was convinced I would not enjoy playing that game. I basically had to be dragged kicking and screaming to play a game, after which one game, loved it. Man, it was the best game I'd ever played in my life. And World of Warcraft was the same thing. I'd played the Warcraft up to that point. I loved the Warcraft stories and the games, but I knew I was going to hate World of Warcraft. Don't want to play it. I wasn't exactly dragged to play that, but I was encouraged to play it and loved it. It's fantastic. Now, if I had to work, because the great thing about World of Warcraft is it is very easy to get into. If I'd have had to work at it, I'd have got bored with it and gone, because it's not like I was hunting around for a game. There was plenty to do. In fact, the annoying thing was I actually had an increasingly popular website that I was running for Warhammer. You know, because I used to do battle reports and stuff like that. No one else was really doing that. You'd occasionally see the odd one in White Dwarf, and that were it. WoW took a lot of good things from MMOs. Of course it did. That's what you do. If a competitor's doing something good, you nick it. The way you become the best is you do everything that everyone else is doing well, and you do some extra things well as well. It's simple. That's all you do. Of course, if all you can do is copy other people, then you're always less than they are. So obviously you're never going to catch up doing that. So you have to do something else that's uniquely you and good. Just found out see, I don't have Steam. I've occasionally had to think about it because sometimes there's been games I've thought maybe I should. Eventually, I will probably get a Steam account, but at the moment, I'm not that. I haven't. But the problem is that Blizzard have stopped taking the good ideas. They've stopped it, you know. So now that I think that's, you know, it's looking a bit more jaded just because of that. StarCraft was a Warhammer 40k RTS in development, and someone said the same thing about Warcraft and Warhammer being Warcraft was intended as a Warhammer type thing. Which you can believe, there's certainly a lot of similarities there. All WoW needs are romance options. Well, you're going to get one. Because I am now convinced that the person who said that thing was right, that Anduin and Talia are going to get together. Is Warhammer like D&D? Nothing like it now. Even its role-playing games, like its questing games, are nothing like D&D. They did actually come out with something called Warhammer Roleplay once. I've got the book of it still. That was an attempt at a D&D type thing in the Warhammer universe. But it didn't really take off. Star Wars The Old Republic was great until their first big patch. And they went free to play. See, as a casual player, who hasn't played it for a while actually, I actually quite like Star Wars The Old Republic. But I can well imagine that as a serious player, it's pants. But, you know, EA, what do you expect? What, nobody threatens WoW now so they don't have to innovate. It'd be nice, though, wouldn't it? Be nice to innovate. The new communities. What do you mean, real-life romance? Gordon Bennett. Anduin and Rathian. Unless Kalia is Rathian in disguise, and I don't think she is, then I don't think that's likely. WoW is a cosmetic gift machine now. No, they sell hardly any cosmetic stuff. Play Star Wars since the beta game could have been amazing. Well, any game can be amazing. Very few actually achieve it, though. Yeah, but I think you're right. I think Talia and Anduin, it's nailed on. After reading this, especially, I mean, it sounded good at the time, but after reading the book, yeah, God, it's certain, surely. The mechanics in Star Wars: The Old Republic are pretty grim, I have to say. Like, it seems unnecessarily fiddly, all the classes. You know, people keep like I saw again another video Kalani going on, and he knows this isn't true as well. This isn't being naughty again, talking about the fact, oh, very few abilities, which isn't even true. Does that make the game too simple? As if the complexity of a game is related to how many abilities you have, which is not at all true. It's to do with the interaction of the abilities. You know, you can have a very complex game with very few abilities. It's how they interplay that matters. But Star Wars: The Old Republic, it's over-bloated, massively over-bloated in terms of abilities. It's ridiculous. Anduin will be Alpha Duin. Well, maybe he stood up to Gen in this. You know, there's a scene in here where Anduin and Gen are arguing, not like shouty arguing, but actually arguing. And Anduin says something that Gen isn't happy about. Gen gets up to walk out the room, and Anduin goes, hang on a minute, come here, sit down, you're going to listen to me. And he does. He comes in and sits down. Now, someone who can do that to Gen is, you know, that's someone who's got some chops. That's what I say. He used to be a whiny kid, but I think that's gone now. I think he's gone. We've got decent Anduin now, which is why it's all the more disgraceful they've decided to leave him as a priest. He should absolutely be making, you know, the leap to becoming a paladin. But there you go, can't be helped. Now, you see, you read the book. Anduin is the boss. I never played Star Wars Galaxies. WoW was my first MMO. And I never played any that were brought out before WoW. Yeah, well, this is the thing, Jonathan, exactly. We had fewer abilities back then. And, you know, it was fine then. Fewer abilities. I mean, obviously, if you just had two, then it's probably not going to be that complex. But there's still plenty of abilities in World of Warcraft. Is WoW easier for a new player now than versus Classic? Depends in what context you mean. Obviously, there's more abilities now. That inherently means that playing your class is more difficult now than it was during Vanilla. But a lot of aspects of the game are easier. Like in Vanilla, you might die quite a lot. You might not. You might get good and stop dying. But you might die just while leveling up. Also, getting around was not so straightforward. So there's a lot of things that are easier now, but there are also things that are more difficult now. Notice Noble was sponsored by Blizzard. No, I think it's a good thing. I think Blizzard have ignored the community too much. I think it does them good to promote certain people in the community. Because they've been doing it for a little while now. As long as they only promote the good ones, I'm fully in support of it. You missed TBC as Ret in some ways. It was fun to excel at a class that was generally considered garbage. Oh yeah, Retnub. Yeah, I used to put that on my applications. What do you play, Retnub? It's a bit like that scene from White Men Can't Jump, isn't it? It's like, you know, if I come top of damage or even anywhere close, then it's like, the way is to put it is, if I do like moderate damage, then, you know, I don't lose face because you think I'm going to do that anyway, or even poor damage. If I come close to top of damage, then you're the one who looks silly. In fact, I remember the first guild I joined as a Ret Paladin. It's not the first guild I played as a Ret Paladin, because I changed while I was already in a guild, of course. But then when I changed guild, so I went there because they were specifically looking for Ret Paladin, and it wasn't to replace someone. They didn't have a Ret Paladin. So I went there and joined it, and everyone was quite friendly. It was a very nice guild, actually. And then I did my first raid, and I did quite well. And everyone was saying, oh my God, how well you've done. I basically got the impression, I was told later, that a lot of the guild didn't agree with the officers about getting a Ret Paladin. They thought it was a bad idea. And then they were completely won over after one raid. Wasn't fun using the trinkets from Tempest Keep that lowered your threat from Chris. I see, I wasn't Horde. I didn't get the benefit of Seal of Blood, you know. So I had mana issues. At least you didn't have mana issues. All right, you needed some bugger to heal you up, but you know. Ret in Nighthold was very good. Ret in Antaurus was very good. That's why I couldn't believe I struggled to find a guild in Antaurus. Because I thought, are these people not paying attention? Ret's going to be amazing in Antaurus. No, they weren't paying attention. Nah, positioning damage meters is irrelevant. The fact is, do you do enough damage, and do you do enough damage to the things you need to do the damage to? I hated Ret in Dragon Soul. Because I didn't play all the way through Cataclysm. I'd quit the game. So I came back for Dragon Soul. It's a bad idea. I hated it. It was so messy. The spec had got so messy. It was absolutely insane. You know, fortunately they refined it over the next couple of expansions. In fact, Mop was a big improvement, I have to say. Cataclysm Ret, even though I only played it for one tier, I thought it was dreadful. It was the worst I'd ever known it. And that includes back in Vanilla, where Ret was basically Seal of Crusade, Judge, Seal of Command, auto attack until it runs out. Because you didn't have the mana to keep judging. That would be too expensive. Except on Lotheb, where I got a free Innovate, and then I top damage, but it's brilliant. Seal of Vengeance was a tanking seal, so you had to use Seal of Command. At least we didn't have to Seal Twist. We were spared that, because that sounds like a horrendous bloody gameplay style. That's degenerate gameplay if ever I heard of it. Wadret. Yeah, a lot of people quite liked Wadret. There were a couple of things that were not good about it, though. But by and large, it was decent. But no, I really didn't like Cataclysm Ret, and I played it in Dragon Soul. I thought it was a mess. It was just a mess. Is Preach right? I've seen that video. Well, I've seen that he's done that video. I haven't watched it yet. Is he right about picking your class rather than spec and class for Mythic Progression Raiden? You should pick your class role. He's right. Like, if you're going to choose to play a Warlock, then you play a Warlock. That is true. And you should be able to play all of the Warlock specs. Obviously, they will have slightly different gearing demands. And all right, everyone will understand that, you know, that's not going to be easy, especially with Force Personal Loot. But you should be able to play them. But there are certain exceptions. Like, for me, for example, if someone asks me to tank, all right, I'll tank. But I won't do it well because I don't tank very often, so I don't get the practice. Whereas, you know, Destruction, Demonology, and Affliction Warlocks, although those specs play differently, your role in a raid is the same, your ranged DPS. So, you know, your ranged DPS, that's all there is to it. Like, I know how to play Holy. If I needed to do damage as Holy, I can do damage as Holy. If I need to do damage as Prot, I can do damage as Prot. It's the extra little things that you need to know to heal well and to tank well that I don't know. But obviously a Mythic Raider should not... You shouldn't ever think of yourself as, say, like an Assassination Rogue or a Demonology Warlock or something. That is true. He wants all the specs to be... See, the only way... See, this is why I have an issue with Blizzard making specs for the same class role combination very different. Because not only does it mean that they have this nightmare when it comes to making all the different classes unique and still doling out enough decent stuff to everyone, but it means you can easily have a player who doesn't like a particular playstyle. They should make all the class role specs to play the same. They just have different advantages and disadvantages. I think they should... I think the only thing that should distinguish them, this is almost going back to how it used to be, is the talents. I think they should just have different talents. I think they should have the same baseline abilities, different talents. You know, that way, if someone enjoys the playstyle of a Warlock, they're going to enjoy all of them. But the different specs will still bring different things to the fight, so you can switch between them. It also means you get more utility abilities to spread out amongst everyone else, so you don't end up with like people sat at the back going, right, utility please. Oh, sorry, we've run out. Right, fine, thank you. So I only played the first tier in Wrath, really. Like, I came back later, as I say, to join a casual friends guild, but you didn't have to really play that well there. Coming from enjoying Shadow Priest, you like Affliction playstyle more than Demo Destro. Well, yeah, but this is the problem, you know. So if you end up going for a particular spec, and then all of a sudden it turns out that that's the shit spec, and it's like you can play any of the other two, they're fine, but the one you've chosen to play, no, that's the rubbish one. Then it's a bit like, well, I don't like those. Well, you're snookered, aren't you? You're stuck. And then it's into the situation where it's better to play a spec you enjoy, because you'll do more DPS as a poor spec that you enjoy than a good spec that you don't, because if you don't enjoy it, you won't actually learn how to play it well. But the problem is that you're still doing substandard performance, either however you look at it. I think it would be massively underwhelming if a class with multiple DPS spec played very similar. Why? Why would it be massively underwhelming? They shouldn't even have different specs. There's no... The only reason that, say, Warlocks, as an example, even have 3 specs is because when they were designing the classes, some classes had multiple roles. So they needed multiple specs to deal with it. And the number of roles was 3. So that meant that they gave everyone 3 specs to make them feel like the same. That's the only reason it existed in the first place. There was no good reason for it. Casual players don't need to switch spec. No, we're talking about more serious players. It doesn't necessarily have to be for raids. It could be for dungeons as well. Or PvP. %90 of the time you're playing Marks in Hellfire Citadel. Why is POS? Hold on. Don't remember what that is even. No, percentiles are only for people at Whore. They're irrelevant. What matters is have you done enough. Have you done enough damage to kill the boss? And have you done a little bit more just to compensate for anyone else gets a bit stuck? And have you done enough damage to the things that need to die? And have you also dealt with the mechanics, which might actually involve not doing any damage at all every now and then? People can worry about passing after it's all dead, which for most people never happens. Oh, what we're doing? Oh, it's there. If you do enough damage, you can skip mechanics. No, you can't. No, you can't. In fact, sometimes doing too much damage causes the mechanics to go completely wildly out of control. Such as, for example, coming back and doing Il'gynoth once you were already, like, well past it. You have to stop doing DPS at those points. There's certain points, even on progress fights, we have to stop DPS. You know, something like Iminar, sometimes Argus from this raid. There were certain points where you had to just stop it. Thoughts on the recent nerf to bonus roll coins? I didn't know there had been a nerf. Has there been a nerf to coins? What's happened? Will Blizzard go as far as giving Horde less loot percentage? No, that would be unfair. Why would they do that? No. That would be grossly unfair. You know, you can encourage people to go from one to the other, but you can't do that. Percentiles don't matter for anyone. You'd rather get varied gameplay across fewer characters. Also, if we were to be locked to basically only 12 different DPS playstyles versus 24 we have now. But 12! 12's loads. It's absolutely loads. And it'd be more than 12 anyway, it'd be 14. Because you've got to remember, shamans, I suppose hunters, but they shouldn't have done that. Shamans and druids have melee and ranged DPS specs. I'm not suggesting they should play the same. So it'd be really 14. You could argue 15 with survival hunters if they insist on them being melee. Remember back in MOP you did so much damage at the protectors that you're entering all phases at once. There were things like that. There are things that can happen like that now. Yeah, there is such a thing as doing too much damage and causing yourself trouble. I wasn't very keen on Manaroth. It was a decent fight. I don't think it was a badly designed fight. But, you know, there was... I don't know. I didn't particularly like it. Archimonde was better. They were nerfed from 3 to 2 per week, and the cost to purchase them was doubled. Oh. To be honest, though, it probably doesn't matter too much, personal loot, now does it? It's all the loots are completely RNG anyway. So, in fact, if you think about it, the whole purpose of coins to begin with was supposed to smooth out your luck when it came to getting... So it allowed you to focus on a particular boss and say, look, this boss drops my super bis item. I'm going to increase my chance of getting loot from it. Now, Blizzard could argue that they only need to give us 1 coin a week to be able to achieve that. But obviously the forced personal loot is all about increasing the amount of time it takes us to get the gear that we want. So obviously, yeah, I suppose, you know, knackering coins is in the same line of thinking, isn't it? So it's like, why Progress updated and taken away most of the Alliance to Horde transfers? Top 100 Alliance is 409 World for Argus. I bet Horde is probably about 130. It might not even be. In fact, even 130 might be outside it. That'd be interesting to know. End up over BFA more than just the undead become alliance option. Yeah, the Tauren. Now that was an interesting point as well, which I didn't really bring up because it wasn't part of the main thing. But yeah, Sylvanas basically said in the book, I keep showing it. Shiny. Sylvanas, although I don't like the artwork on the front, I don't think the Anduin and Sylvanas artwork's very good, I have to say. Actually, I'm slagging off a lot of artists lately, but I'm sorry, I don't like it. Sylvanas basically thinks to herself that if it weren't for the fact she needed the Tauren, she'd be quite happy for them to join the alliance. You know, she'd rather they just pissed off. Even though it's the Tauren that persuaded the Horde to accept the Forsaken. The only reason that happened, I mean, it would have made more sense at the start for the Forsaken to have joined the alliance. It's obviously the story's moved to the point where that would be now unthinkable, but at the time it would have made a lot of sense. I think the only reason they didn't do it is because the 4 races in Warcraft 3, you had, you know, the orcs basically, but that included trolls and Tauren. You had the humans, which also included dwarfs, and you had the Night Elves, and then you had the Forsaken. And if the Forsaken had joined the alliance, it'd be like, well, 3 of the races from Warcraft 3 have all joined the same faction, and the other faction is made up of like 1 Warcraft race, effectively. Plus, I suppose, obviously it would have been easy to deal with, like, I suppose they could have let Horde have gnomes. They wouldn't have done, would they? I mean, they could have just let Horde have goblins and got rid of gnomes. That would have actually suited everyone. Yeah, that's what they should have done. They're not going to kill Sylvanas. She's too important a character to kill. They can do something else. They can depose her without killing her. Back in the beta, there was only... I didn't play beta or alpha. I didn't even play the game when it first came out. It was a few months later. Garrosh was a twat, though. Let's be honest. He was a complete arsehole. He managed to piss off... Like, he managed to piss off Kel'Thas for a start. So the Alliance lost an ally because of this idiot. Anduin was naughty, yes. But yeah, Garrosh was a complete arsehole. They should get rid of racial segregation for PvE, of course. Well, the money thing is certainly, you know, you've got to imagine there are certain things for gameplay that would help a lot, and it would help them retain players. And you know, one is not having races determine your faction, and also easing up on the realm thing. They could easily, like, obviously the fact that they're going to allow mythic cross-realm, that basically means that there's nothing to stop them having super servers. You know, ESO call them mega servers, where you only basically have an NA realm, an EU realm, an Asian realm, and what have you. And you can join any guild that's on any of those regions and raid with them. They've got the technology to do that. We know that. So why isn't it implemented? Because they make money. They obviously feel that they make more money from those transfers, from idiots like me paying it all, than they do from the lost subscriptions. Now, whether they're right or not, who knows? But they obviously feel that way. Wonder if one day they'll just be rid of the distinction of Horde and Alliance. Well, maybe when they do the next Warcraft game. You know, I think they're gearing up to finish off the story of World of Warcraft. I really do. Not to, like, kill it off, but I think they're ready to move in a completely different direction. I think that's why they've done in the Burning Legion, and I also think that's why they're going to do in the Old Gods. Obviously, that doesn't finish off the Void. Of course, you can't. But, you know, that then allows Azeroth to emerge, because she's been sleeping in quite a long time, hasn't she? She's overslept considerably. Garrosh was basically, like, a lot of people thought that his apparent change in personality during MoP especially was out of character. I thought it was very in character, because remember where Garrosh came from. He was someone who was too sickly to go to Azeroth. He was a sick kid, and what happens to sick kids? They get bullied. So he grew up big and strong, and what does someone who grows up big and strong who was bullied as a kid do? Go around beating people up. So I think it was perfectly in keeping that he grew up to be a twisted, bitter thug. $25 for server transfer. Yeah, that's not the least of it. That's if you want to keep your faction. If you want to change faction as well, it's a ridiculous amount of money. And if you want to do it on multiple characters, it's a ridiculous amount of money multiplied by number of characters. If a few Horde races became playable for Alliance, it would make a difference on the imbalance. Other than that, you see no way. Again, the problem is, from a recruitment point of view, it doesn't matter about races anymore. It would have done at one time, but now it doesn't, because the majority of players are Horde. Which means, if you go as a Horde guild, decide to transfer to the Alliance, you are going to be, the first guild certainly to do it, are going to be accepting very poor recruitment prospects. Very poor. You know, for cutting edge guilds anyway. Do I think most people pay for their monthly subs with gold these days? I think a hell of a lot must do on the EU for the price of a WoW token to be as high as it is. I think there must be quite a lot paying for it, but I don't think it's the majority. If it was the majority, Blizzard's coffers would have shot up, because effectively, every time someone pays gold for a sub, Blizzard are effectively getting double the normal rate, because it costs about twice as much for a WoW token as it does a monthly sub if you sub with money. The rank 101 Horde guild is going to be pissed that they aren't even getting on the leaderboard. Well, if you're at that level, especially as a Horde one, as an Alliance one, obviously you don't have to be as competitive, but as a Horde guild, sorry, you're at that level, you understand the competitive nature of the game. So that's all there is to it. Pity the poor person who comes fourth in the Olympics. You know, that's life, I'm afraid. From his perspective, from anyone's perspective, they didn't do anything bad. There's not many people in life, even people who do the most wicked, evil things, who think from their point of view they're doing anything bad. There's plenty of evil people in fiction and in life that have done the most terrible things and actually think that they're saints. But the bottom line is, if you harm someone, you know, without it necessarily being because of they are aggressive, they're an aggressor, then by definition that's wicked. Tokens only exist because people buy them in real money, yes. Well, there has to be a two-way street. You know, I wouldn't buy them with real money if there wasn't a lot of gold in it for me. So there has to be a lot of demand for it for me to buy them. You have beta now, but you saw that there's still some bugs. Of course, there'd be no point in beta if there weren't any bugs. Beta is about bugs. It's your job to test them and to root them out. That's all you're in there for. And as they ramp up the number of people in beta, they'll also be doing their stress testing. So it also might get a little bit more unstable. We're probably not at that point just yet, although it has done that a few times. The best villains always consider themselves the hero of the story. Of course, indeed. All of them. In life, as I say, as well as in fiction. Like even Lord of the Rings, from which a lot of modern fantasy games stem. You know, Morgoth, he thought he was doing good. You know, when he started mucking about with Arda when they were making Arda. He thought he was doing all right. You know, he was veering from the plan, but he was doing his own thing. You know, he was a bit of a maverick. Didn't intend any harm. It just didn't work out that way. Oh, what now? Oh, no, this is definitely one. Sorry, I've actually got a comment showing up here that actually does need dealing with. What the hell is this shit? There you go. Oh dear God. Can people, like... Sorry, I want to deal with a few... There seems to be a little bit of spam. Just having to report them. Oh God. Get more of this here than I did on Twitch. Right. How can you see that? What the hell? You're not supposed to be able to see that because I ain't okayed it. Oh, I don't bloody know. How is this still happening? I've reported this bloody guy. Right. I'm reporting for someone for spam. How come they can still bloody post? Bloody annoying. The hidden messages still show. In what sense are they hidden? What's wrong with YouTube? Can't they get anything right? Seriously. Can they get nothing right? What the hell? Bloody hell. Oh God, sub for subs. Who's brainless enough to ever fall for any of that crap? It's like a phishing thing I got today. Or email. Someone emailing me saying, oh, you've been selected to get $2.4 million. Just respond back. Really? Not even trying. Not even trying. Just on this. Oh, I see. Oh, it's here. It's my fault. Okay. Well, all right. I see. Got you. Can you block him? I don't. It doesn't seem to give me an option. Like. Oh my fucking God. I can put them in timeout. There you go. Gone. So much messing about. Did I hear that YouTube have demonetized it? I heard that they... there's a lot of very big YouTubers are convinced that if there's any sort of mention of Twitch... Can't demonetize me that much. I don't get much money in the first place. That they're not terribly happy about it. But if they want to compete with Twitch, then what do they need to do? Make the bloody thing better. That's what they need to do. Well, I reported them because on Twitch, if you report someone, it automatically gets rid of them as well. But it doesn't do that here. Making millions. I'm not. I make... What do I make? Typically about $300. So, you know. Hi, Ace. But what made me change? Because someone said this was better. That's what. And I suppose it would. I am also planning on scaling back the streaming as well, the gameplay streaming. As soon, not immediately, but when BFA comes out, that's going to be scaled quite a lot back. Because, you know, in terms of the gameplay streaming, obviously I'll still stream when I'm raiding. Because I'm going to be raiding anyway. What's the palm? The problem with the other streams is when you have to keep to a schedule, it means like let's say if I do a 4-hour stream, it's not just 4 hours that I could be spending doing other things like videos and stuff like that. It's also, you know, I can't do anything before it or after it. Well, certainly not before it, because I'm not someone who can start on something and then finish and be halfway through a task and then can't pick it up because I'll make a mess of it otherwise. Someone said YouTube stream was better than Twitch. Well, to be fair, because my main medium is YouTube, and this is going up on YouTube anyway, straight away after. Well, not straight away after, because it takes longer. This is another thing. Sorry, YouTube. I'm saying Twitch again. When I used to do this on Twitch, if I didn't want to edit or anything, if I just wanted to upload it straight to YouTube, it used to do it in like less than 15 minutes. If I didn't make too many changes or anything like that, just export it, about 15 minutes. On here, it takes hours. It's bloody hours. It's already on YouTube. How does it take hours to process it? It does my head in. But, yeah, no, so, you know, if we can see here, like, I've got 123 people watching, or at least listening. Hello, all 123. 125. Never mind, that's even better. Whereas on Twitch, I used to get about, what, 40? Something like that. That's no problem, Jonathan. I'm more than happy to carry that on. As long as I keep Mythic Raiding, of course. If ever I had to decide that Mythic Raiding wasn't worth it anymore, unfortunately, I would lack credibility for doing them. YouTube is far superior in technology. Well, it might be. The problem is, it doesn't use it well, does it? It can't do simple... It doesn't get the basics right. Like dealing with trolls. Like, it should be one button. Because, especially if I'm trying to interact with people, I should just be able to press one button. Piss off. There should be a button that just says, piss off. There isn't. I mean, that timeout means it could come back later. I don't know how long the timeout even is. I'll have to like investigate it a bit more. It is a hassle, yes. Like the Ret guides at the moment. See, I've scripted all the Ret guides. I should be starting to narrate them now to get them done because it's a massive project. The problem is that Blizzard are still pissing about with it after their deadline. So, like, the APL's even changed recently. So I can't do that bit of the video. And what if I bring it out and it changes? Then it's like, I want this video to last the whole expansion. Bloody annoying. Blizzard are pains in the ass. But anyway. Probably takes time for YouTube servers to encode. But how does it do it so quickly from Twitch? In for a penny, in for a pound. Anyway, I don't know. I don't know. You know, but it's all right. It does its job. For these discussions, it does its job. I wouldn't want to stream gameplay on it. Not keen on that. But for something like this, it's when it's all working, it's good enough. It's all right. It's fine. I'm not going to moan. But well, I mean, it'll, you know, obviously I'm going to trial it out for a few more weeks, but at the moment I'm thinking to myself, yeah, it's fine here. See you later. Seems Blizz should have used its announcement deadline for Bfa release. No, well, they said September 21st. The thing is, when they announced the actual... they used to, with expansions, announce them 2 months before they released. That changed in Legion. In Legion, they announced it 4 months before it released. They did a similar thing this time round as well. It could be argued that, yes, that's foolish. Now, I'm personally quite pleased because it means it's going to fall during my time off work, which helps a lot. Because there's nothing casual about, or even fun, about the start of an expansion when you need to get ready for raiding. Not at all, if you are having to do it around work. So the fact that I'll have a couple of weeks to sort it out is a godsend. So because it means I can do it in a much more relaxed manner. Because all that, on the first day, I'm probably going to be spending a lot of time playing WoW. Subsequent days, it'll probably just be, you know, on a much more casual basis, chill out still, get ready for work. Obviously, I don't want to go to work burned out. That'll be... Because the first term is horrendous. It lasts all the way up to Christmas, with like 1.5 weeks off in between. The colours of names. I have changed the colours of names, right? When I go into here, like, I'm clicking blue now. It's not blue, right? I'm clicking green. It's not green. It's ignoring me. What can I say? It's completely ignoring me. I haven't chosen it to be black. It's a black background, for God's sake. Although, the only way I was able to even get it so I can read the names is to make the background a little bit translucent. From what you tried, gameplay quality straight into YouTube is... Yeah, see, you're not allowed that. Go away. You're not allowed to swear at YouTube. From what you've tried, gameplay quality straight into YouTube is so much better than Twitch if you have high upload speed. Unless you get partnered and are allowed a better connection. You can't tell with stats, Ace Fatboy. It's really, the stat percentages are largely meaningless. The only time stat percentages mean anything is if there are breakpoints to be met. The rest of the time you have to sim, is my gear the best gear I could put on out of my bags? Oh yeah, they don't like that much. You get away with the odd one. I've sworn a couple of times tonight. You do get away with the odd one. You just don't get away with it a lot. But you're not allowed to swear at YouTube because they don't like that. And their stuff is actually pretty good at picking up on things now. As I'm sure anyone who will have seen the automatically generated subtitles will see. Obviously, occasionally you get the odd hilarious thing coming out of it. But it's pretty good. It's not bad. Not bad at all. If BFA actually goes live on the release date. No. See, the thing is, in terms of where we are now, we're at the same point Legion was. It'll be no worse than Legion. The only difference is they underestimated the amount of work that needed doing on the classes. And then even when they realised they'd need to do more work on the classes, they shortened the amount of time they could spend on it still further by coming up with all this nonsense like the increase of global cooldown abilities on like non-throughput abilities and stuff like that. So there's like class-wide stuff that they've mucked about with, which again has messed about the class designers. Because, you know, I know for a fact that my Ret class designer, they've been lurching for, like, first of all, they were saying, because this is what annoyed me, right? Hammer of Wrath. So first of all, they were umming and ahhing about Hammer of Wrath baseline. And then the argument was, the problem is if we do this, your downtime, you won't have as much downtime as they want you to have. So there was that. Now they've changed their mind. Now they don't need us to have as much downtime, so they're easing up on that. So it's like, oh, can we have Hammer of Wrath baseline yet? Oh, no. Because now what they're saying is that would make it a baseline execute. Only warriors are allowed a baseline execute. But now I'm hearing they might change their mind on that as well. So maybe it might be baseline. They just keep changing their mind on stupid shit and wasting time when they haven't got any time to waste. Do I think there would be a better class spec distribution in higher Mythic Plus in BFA? No. It might be worse. It might be worse. Some of the fights in the first raid tier don't look... Some of them look pretty unfriendly to melee. You know, the first boss is spectacularly unfriendly to melee. Spectacularly unfriendly to me, certainly, because I don't even have... Like, some people, at least, some melee, have, like, short duration defensives that they can use to deal with the blood thing, the puddles. I don't. Vectors looks horrendous for melee. So, I haven't even seen all the bosses. You know, I don't think the last boss... I don't think Gahoon is terrible for melee. But I don't think it's great either. I think it's still one of those where if you could, you know, if you could change it, yeah, if you could have much more range, then you probably would. Warrior Execute isn't a ranged attack, though. No, quite, Snowden. And indeed, you know, that's the sort of thinking that Blizzard could easily come up with. But at the moment, they just... It's all this bullshit. They just keep coming up with things. And the problem is that there's too many people at Blizzard that are very senior and influential that have no brain. Or if they have a brain, they no longer use it because they know they're too comfortable in what they're doing there. They're too comfortable and they get to... All right, we'll probably get away with that. But yes. I'm not sure what has a problem with there. Iggly Wiggly or balls. but yes. It's either unfriendly to melee or too friendly. There's no such thing as too friendly. You know, you should just be able to take your best DPS players. And if they want to come up with mechanics that are unnecessarily melee unfriendly, which some of them are, some of them it's a natural way of the way raiding works in WoW, but some of them it's unnecessary, then they should at least allow every class to have a DPS spec. I would have, although I prefer to play Ret, I would happily play ranged paladin spec for the fights for which melee is no good. You know, if that was the solution, I would accept that solution. So they should actually make Shockadin a thing. But Resto's Shame is extremely strong in Mythic Plus. Not Mythic Plus. Well, it might be, I don't know. You obviously said not. Mythic Raiden is what I actually meant. Well, obviously it doesn't. It obviously has an issue with Iggly Wiggly, doesn't it? Maybe I don't know what it thinks Iggly Wiggly means. Well, Unholy Paladin is a Death Knight, surely. So that's what that is. It's not so much the throughput of the healing for Shames that makes them particularly suitable, although that can be considerable. It's the Spirit Link Totems. Well, it's the utility in general, because it's not just Spirit Link Totem we've got. The Spirit Link Totem is exceptionally powerful. What are my thoughts on BM Hunters? I've quite liked playing them, but I'm not an expert on Hunters. What allied race for Alliance would be best for them? There's not much choice, really, is there? I wouldn't really see any of the Alliance allied races as really fitting well with a hunter. I think of Alliance hunters, I tend to think Night Elves first and foremost, possibly dwarves, but I really wouldn't say Dark Iron dwarves. What's this? Hold on. Do I think all specs should have similar single and multi-type DPS? I've already said before, I think all specs within a class that are for the same role should have basically the same abilities, and it should be the talents that distinguish them. Should have very different talent trees, or completely different talents. There's a missing feeling though when you kill rares and open chests in BFA. Yes, there's a lot of yeah, we're not going to be able to have the language. You're going to have to moderate your language if you need to say something. There's a lot of... Completely forgot what you're talking about now. Oh yeah, like the chests basically give the war resources, and the rares. Some rares give items, and some of the items they drop have set bonuses, which means it might be an idea to leave them until your level cap to get the best possible item level off them. Because that I think that's going to be a thing. But yeah, at the moment most of them just drop a bit of Azerite, and all the chests just drop war resources. So that is a bit, compared to the last couple of expansions, is a bit uninspiring, I have to confess, yes. Any plans to do the mailbox live? No. I can't, every time I have a schedule, it actually reduces the amount of time I have to do other things, which sounds baffling. But because the thing is, sometimes I'm just in the mood, oh, okay, I could really fancy doing this video. And I've planned them all in advance. I have my plans. Well, what I'm doing, I can't show you. But I had, the plans go from Friday to Friday for all my videos. So I have one set there, and I've already working on next week's. So I plan them in advance so that when I feel like doing something on it, then I just do it then. And if that happens to coincide with when I've committed to stream or do something like that, then it makes a mess of it. Also, it means, like, for example, I've got to do the Lord of the Rings video today. Just before I went live here, I edited the narration of it because I knew I'd have just enough time, and I only had just enough time. But let's say I'd have had a bit more time. Let's say I'd have managed to finish editing the narration 10 minutes before. I wouldn't have been able to use that 10 minutes to do anything else because the next task I have to do is going to take me an hour. And I'm not doing 10 minutes and then 50 minutes later because I'll lose the thread. So you also, there's a lot of time before it that gets taken out as well. So I'm a bit impulsive in terms of when I do things. I have my plans for what I need to do, but in terms of the order I do them or when I do them exactly, I'm a creature of like impulse. And having schedules mucks about with that. I don't like schedules. You know, I don't even like having to get up in the morning to go to work on a schedule. I'd like to just get up at whatever time, roll in, and my classes would happen to adjust to my own body clock. That would be ideal, but that unfortunately is not the way the world works. Although I think most of my students would be quite pleased at later starts as well. So actually it would suit everyone, except my boss, I suspect. Cloudburst being gone in BFA, such a shame. See, I don't really play Shame, so I unfortunately don't know what a lot of the hoo-ha is about. But obviously I do know that Blizzard, like I said, underestimated the amount of time that would be needed because they underestimated the amount of changes that would be needed to cope in the post-artifact expansion. And it's inevitable that some things have fallen by the wayside. It's a shame that whole specs have been left in what is... I can't say because I don't play any of those specs well enough to know just how bad they are. But I accept what people are saying. You always have to temper it with the fact that a lot of people always say that their own spec is poor and that everyone else's looks much better though. But you know. What do I teach? I teach science. Any thoughts on Mythic Plus locking gear with your lack of mobility between pulls compared to other melee? Well, Death Knights are largely buggered when it comes to stuff like that still. It's not all of the melee. But yes, compared to everyone else, yes, our mobility is poor. And it has got poorer. Our mobility is worse than it is currently in Legion. Our defensives are worse than they're currently in Legion. So, what new feature of BFA am I most excited about? If I'm honest, I'm not actually excited about any of it. In fact, it's the first... Obviously, I'm excited enough because I'm going to be playing it. So I'm not going to like say, oh, it's going to be a load of shit. If it's going to be a load of shit, I won't play it. I'll go off and... I've got plenty of other things to play. But I actually, for the first expansion ever, have a certain amount of trepidation about it. I'm actually concerned. Without saying it's going to be bad, that's not what I'm saying. But I am I'm not convinced it's going to be good, if we put it that way. That's a better way to put it. I'm just not convinced. I'm not certain it's going to be good. Cloudburst allows Shames to plan for something. Oh, well, that's always good. Have a cooldown that has thought in it, but without it, you're basically back to TBC hitting. Oh, that's okay. I see. What do I think of gold farming? I have no knowledge of gold farming at all. None at all. The way I farm gold is I do nothing for months on end, and then I buy a couple of WoW tokens. That's how I farm gold. Do I teach? No, I teach college. So it's between high school and university. Occasionally, some of them do find my channel. I think largely because, like as is default, you know, when you create a YouTube channel, it just by default gets named after you because you put your name in it. And because when I first made the channel, for many years, all it was a repository for me to upload videos to for friends and guildies. It wasn't anything other than that. So it just had my name there. Obviously, the channel has now changed. But if you still look up my actual name, it'll still come up. So that's what they do, because teenagers are nosy. And the first thing they do when they meet someone is look them up on social media. Hang on, what have I missed? Am I going to do BFA pet battle video? No. I haven't done pet battle. No, the last time I did pet battles was in WoD, and that was at the start just to get rid of that bloody carrot in my garden. I just wanted to tidy the garrison up. The only times I've done regular pet battles was in MOP when they came in, and that was because even though it was less efficient, I would rather pet battle to get the seals than do dailies, because I was so sick of dailies after the first couple of weeks. Islands I'm not excited about. Again, I am apprehensive about islands. I don't think they're a bad feature. I worry that they're a compulsory feature. Anything that's compulsory, I worry about, because, you know, I want to raid. I don't, you know, a lot of things in World of Warcraft, if I'm honest, are not that great anymore these days. There's better games for other types of content. So, you know. See, what I liked WoD. I enjoyed myself in WoD because the leveling was good. I thought it was one of the best leveling expansions there's been. I actually quite liked going around getting the champions. Not champions, what were they called? Followers, sorry, it's champions now. I liked that. And I liked the raiding. And there was nothing else to do. Well, that also suited me because there was nothing else I wanted to do. Whereas now, it's clearly a better expansion. But for me personally, there's so much to do that I don't want to do. I don't want to do it. You have to do only 7 islands a week to cap the AP on them. Well, I'm not doing that much. Sod it. Unless they're super, which I know they're not. Ian Hazacosta said 3. And he didn't say to cap it. He said after that you get diminishing returns to the point where it's not worth it. In other words, for the time, you'll get better returns elsewhere. Many of the systems of BFA are now so broken it's going to be... No, but it was like that in Legion. At this point in Legion it was the same. Really was. It all comes together at the end. The biggest problem is always class design. The artwork's always pretty good. You know, the leveling experience will also be pretty good. It is. You know, everything will sort of work. The only thing that they can possibly cock up is class design, which they regularly seem to. And it's not the class designer's fault either most of the time. You know, most of the time it's the direction they get, which constantly changes direction. You know, it's almost like the class designers are driving a car and following instructions. And the person giving the instructions says, turn left here. They turn left there. And it says, what did you turn left for? You told me to. Yeah, but I actually wanted to turn right. You know, it's just like that. They just change their mind all the time. On beta right now, there's a bar you can fill for the big reward prize and it fills after 7 wins. Yeah. But I don't think it's supposed to be linear. I think you're supposed to get diminishing returns off them. That's what Ian Hazacosta said anyway. But then again, he says so many things and they're not always. Sometimes they change. Systems in how they're actually designed to function, not bugs. World Quest will become obsolete entirely within a week. But the way it stands now, maybe. But they can always incentivize them. Something like when it comes to content, if you think about content becoming obsolete just because of the incentive, they can always change the incentive. So something like that they can deal with. Maybe they only want it to be relevant for a week. I don't mind that. Any content that becomes irrelevant for a raider after a certain amount of time, ideally within 2 weeks of it coming out, because that's when I go back to work, suits me down to the ground, and I will not criticise that. But they could always, if they want to, if they decide that they want to get us to do all these things. But it might be that Blizzard have learnt, because my thing was, okay, WoD, everyone complained there was nothing to do. So Blizzard, I think, went completely to the other extreme and gave us too much to do. You know, not too much where you had a choice of what to do. There's nothing wrong with that. But too much that you had to do. So much so, in fact, that there was so much to do on one character that if you, by definition, if you made alts, that meant there was stuff you were doing on your main character that you weren't, doing on your main character that you could have done. Would I ever go to the pub with some viewers and do a live Azeroth review? No. Under no circumstances. You don't need to farm AP. I bet I do. I bet I do. But that's another thing. You see, in theory, like in Legion, there was, well, for a while anyway, there was no upper limit you could reach for the AP. So it was always worth getting more AP as a min-maxer. That may not be true, because we only need as much AP as necessary to get to the level that unlocks our Azerite armor. So as soon as all our Azerite traits are unlocked, although you can get more, you're not getting that much benefit from it, because a higher item level on the neck is not really that much. Blizzard always go for the extreme. People want a player housing. They didn't give us player housing, and they know they didn't as well. They know they didn't. The best I would think about garrisons is that maybe they were thinking about it and developed the technology for it. And then when garrisons didn't work, the people that were against player housing went, see, they don't like it. Missing the point completely. But anyway, that's a lost cause. If something drops a reward that isn't AP or gear, people will say it's not required to do. Yes. Indeed. So it should drop cosmetic gear, exactly. That's what it should do. That will the thing is, gear and AP does not incentivize the majority of the player base. Things like that would. Pets, mounts, transmog, all of those things would incentivize the vast majority of the player base, including the raiders. I don't understand why they don't ever sort of get that into their thick heads. I really don't. You know, I just don't get it. I mean, I know California legalized marijuana use some time ago, but, you know, you're not supposed to use it at work, surely. How would I feel about each class getting an additional spec instead of adding new classes? No. Not unless it was for a different role. The only new... They should actually condense specs, but they won't, because people will moan. So if they add new specs, it should be for an extra role. Like, if they want to add a ranged DPS spec to my class, yes, they should do that, because then, when it's a melee hating fight, I can go ranged. But anyway, we've come to the end. In fact, we've gone 8 minutes over the end. I've got videos to do. So I'm going to call it there. Thanks very much for coming on. I will be back on... Well, I'll be back streaming, I suppose, on tomorrow, because it's Guild Raid night again. So yeah, tomorrow, Thursday and Friday, and then Saturday. 4 days in a row, then 3 days with nothing. So thanks for coming on, everyone. And until next time, I will see you.